Canadian Pacific's Hudson No. 2816, a semi-famous locomotive that, as of recent, has collected a large gathering of rail fans for the upcoming CPKC's final Spike Tour, which will do what no steam tour has done before, cross the continent of North America. In honour of this historic tour, Steel Beasts of Norfolk and Western shall step away from his roots in the Appalachia Mountains, uncover the locomotive's history, from her revenue service to the excursion star the Empress became. So, as always, sit back and enjoy, as we step away from our usual territory and head into another. .2816 is a class of H1B for 6 for Hudson types, built by the Montreal Locomotive Works in December of 1930. .2816 was one of 10 H1B class locomotives, being one of the last 5 built. She would first see service on the line between Winnipeg and Fort William, Ontario, where she would haul commuter and mail trains. Later, she was transferred to service between Windsor, Ontario, and Quebec City, and finally, she ran a commuter train between Montreal and Rigaud, Quebec. The engine was retired from revenue service on May 26, 1960, after more than 3.2 million kilometers of active service. As much as I dislike it, not much more is really known about .2816's revenue service, marking this locomotive in particular to have such a short beginning segment in one of my story videos. At least from my research, that is. If you have information about her revenue service outside of what I mentioned, please comment it below. I will praise you later and pin your comment for all to see. With this, we shall continue into the next segment, where the Empress's real story begins. In the early 1960s, Francis Nelson Blount wanted to expand his Steamtown, USA collection, and one of the locomotives he wanted to preserve was a 464 from the New York Central Railroad. However, since all New York Central Hudsons were scrapped by that time, Blount improvised by purchasing .2816 from the CPR in January of 1964 as the only 464 in the collection. The locomotive was out on static display at Steamtown in Bellows Falls, Vermont, for several years before it was moved along with the rest of the collection in 1984 to Scranton, Pennsylvania, where the name was changed to Steamtown National Historic Site under the ownership of the National Park Service in 1986. During .2816's time on static display, the locomotive started to deteriorate because she was unprotected from the elements. .2816 remained in that condition for some 35 years in New England and Pennsylvania. In September of 1998, the Canadian Pacific purchased .2816 after hearing of its availability from the crews who were running the Royal Hudson .2860. The locomotive was transported from Scranton to Montreal via Binghamton and Albany, New York, before being shipped cross-country to the BC Rail steam shops in Vancouver for restoration. The locomotive was completely stripped down and rebuilt, the most thorough out-rebuild undertaken on a steam locomotive in North America since the end of their era, according to CPR News. The restoration team was able to use over 800 technical drawings of H1B class locomotives from the Canada Science and Technology Museum to completely restore .2816 to its 1950s appearance and to its original specifications. Something that is unheard of in the steam preservation world. During restoration, the locomotive was converted to burn oil and was equipped with modern amenities such as a radio and a diesel control unit. The restoration took over 2 years and cost over $2 million, making it one of the most costly locomotive restorations in Canada. CPR was confident in the restoration enough to announce on April 19, 2000, that 2816 would become an ambassador for the railway in the railway's new heritage steam program. This will lead us into our next segment, where we will cover the Empress's first revival into excursion service. On August 16, 2001, restoration work was completed and the engine moved again under its own power for the first time in 41 years in a test run. In September 2001, the locomotive made its first trial run from the BC Rail steam shops to its new home of Calgary. It then rejoined the Canadian Pacific Fleet as a special excursion locomotive and for public relations. Between 2001 and 2011, 2816 travelled across Canada and the United States. On May 16, 2002, the locomotive pulled to excursion trains for the West Coast Express. And on September 27, 2003, 2816 participated in a double-header excursion with Canadian National number 2141. At the end of the 2008 season, Canadian Pacific put the steam program on hold due to financial issues caused by the poor economy, leaving 2816 with downtime to be taken under heavy maintenance. 2816 returned to operation on June 6, 2010. It was used in Rocky Mountain Express, a 2011 IMAX film which follows the locomotive on a journey from Vancouver to Montreal while telling the CPR's history. The engine made its last run in the summer of 2011 to promote the Children's Wish Foundation, marking a 10-year lifespan of 2816's return to the mainline. In late 2012, Canadian Pacific CEO Fred Green stepped down. Andy Hunter Harrison succeeded him. The latter had no interest in steam locomotive operations and discontinued the steam program, leaving 2816 to be stored in Calgary. Even after Harrison stepped down in early 2017, being succeeded by Keith Creel, the engine remained in storage. In my opinion, like a lot of you, 2816 should have returned then, but I digress. This leads us into our final section, which mentions her last revival and the upcoming tour. On November 13, 2020, 2816 was fired up for a steam test and moved around the Calgary yard with a railroad representative saying the test was to assess the engine's mechanical condition with no plans to operate the engine on the main lines. In 2021, Creel said that if the United States Surface Transportation Board approves the CPR's merger with the Kansas City Southern Railway, the railway would celebrate it by bringing 2816 back under steam. However, the locomotive was in need of an overhaul, which was completed in June 2023. CPKC plans to begin 2816's tour as of the release of this video on April 24, 2024. As the tour starts today with the release of the video, it is unclear of 2816's future after the tour. I guess we will wait and see what CPKC will decide after the tour. I'd like to thank you all for joining me today, as this marks a historic moment in railroad preservation and tour in North America. I'd also love for you guys to check out the Railfans YouTube channels who were credited in this video, as it helps them out as well. The links to their channels are below in the description. And as a final word, I wish all Railfans luck in chasing 2816 while on her tour, but please follow safety guidelines that they put in place. No shot is worth the risk. As always, I'll see you guys next time.